webinar today. Today's webinar is with our NSA Plus partner, Kodaris. It's number 75 in our professional services series. And this particular webinar is on end-to-end payment processing. And delighted to have a pretty good sized team here from Kodaris with us. So our presenters today are going to be Mike Manzoni, and Mike is the EVP of Platform Solutions, and Brandon Smith, who is the VP of Operations. I would ask if you have questions, enter them into the chat. There will be opportunities to get those addressed at a couple of times during the webinar itself. And everybody that's attending today will be receiving a recording of the webinar. And with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll be doing kind of a combination of some PowerPoint slides just to talk through the capabilities, and then we'll go in and do some live presentation a little later in the presentation. But I just want to say thanks everybody for joining. We definitely appreciate your time and excited to talk to you guys about payment processing, and we're going to put a real focus on the integrated payment capabilities or embedded card transactions within CloudSuite distribution. Just a little bit of background on myself. I may have spoken to or worked with many of you in the past. Prior to joining Kodaris about a year ago, I was at Infor for 12 years, most recently as in the role of product manager for CloudSuite distribution. So not only am I very familiar with Infor, the platform, CSD, I've also been on the technology or software side of distribution industry for roughly 25 years. So, hopefully as we have our conversations today and moving forward, that experience will lend itself to our conversations. I think part of, a couple of things that, as we work through the presentation. First of all, at a high level, who is Kodaris? So a couple of things. Kodaris is a technology platform. So we are a platform of solutions and capabilities that really drives value for distribution. But maybe even before we get into what it is that we do as a whole, we are an Infor partner. So we've been an Infor partner for now more than 2 years. We're what they call a product partner. As a product partner, we take advantage of the Infor platform technology, Infor OS. So when we think about how we integrate to Infor and CloudSuite distribution, we're really leveraging Infor OS in full, whether it be leveraging data from the data lake, leveraging not only the SX APIs, but the service interface APIs, to both pull data as well as update and create new data back into CSD. So again, taking advantage of the Infor OS platform. And as we talk about this payments integration and the embedded card processing within CSD, we work closely with the CSD product team. So that would be product management and development, and not only letting them know what we were working on, but working in conjunction with them to confirm that the capabilities are meeting the standard processes, they're supportable, they're scalable, all the things that are important to Infor and to Infor's customers as they introduce new technology. In addition, as Brian mentioned, we are an NSA partner as well. So we work closely with NSA in terms of delivering solutions to NSA's customer base that add value, that really complement the CloudSuite distribution platform. So if you look at Kodaris at a high level, and what does the platform encompass? Really at that bottom layer there's CloudSuite distribution. So that is the ERP, the core transactional system. As I mentioned, we have a very robust integration, including replicating a bunch of data over into the Kodaris platform in near real time. But if we go across the top, those boxes on the top, the gray boxes from right to left, customer portal is where your customers might log in. We like to think about it as a payment portal for sure, but it's really full self-service account management. So they can log in, they can make payments on account, make deposits, They can view transactional detail, whether it's historical open transactions, delivery status. It's a shared document repository. So there's a whole bunch of things that your customers can do through the customer portal. Multi-channel commerce, yes, that's e-commerce. It's really where Kodaris got its start more than 10, 11 years ago. But it's truly how does your customer want to do business with you? Is that through an e-commerce portal? Is it through electronic integration or files? Is it punch out? Is it managed inventory? So, multi-channel, how does your customer want to do business? That operational and sales portal, that's where the distributor employees would log in. We have capabilities that include CRM, product information management or PIM tooling, CMS, automation tools for AP, sales order, quote, AR. So a lot of capabilities within that operational and sales portal. And then we do a lot of work with suppliers, whether it's data integrations, transactional integrations or updates, and even, working with suppliers and AP on the payment side as well. What's kind of common across all of these, and back to the theme of today's webinar, is there are payments in each of these areas. So if you're looking at a customer portal, that customer is logging in and they're wanting to pay invoices on their account, credit card, ACH, etc. When you look at commerce, that customer is checking out and they're wanting to pay for their order at the end of the transaction through the commerce portal. When you look at operational and sales portal, your employees may be logging in and posting a payment via credit card, ACH, EFT on behalf of your customer. So payments, and then on top of that, again, the focus of today, the ability to bring payments into CSD and allow the distributor, allow your folks to process those credit card payments through the CSD screen through order entry. So, as Brian mentioned, we're talking about end-to-end payment processing, and Kodaris really does provide that end-to-end processing. That really kind of takes us to this next slide, where we talk about the types of payments. And I think what's important to understand is while the integrated credit card payment processing within CloudSuite distribution is new as of the start of this year, we've been doing payment processing with our customers since, I believe, 2017 or 2018, and over that time processed billions of dollars in transactions, payments. So this is not a new venture for us. What's been added this year is that embedded CSD processing. So if we look historically at the different payment flows that we've supported, I talked about them a moment ago. Commerce payments, so on checkout. Customer portal, where your customer wants to make a payment, and that could be a payment against specific invoices. It could be a payment on account or a deposit on account for a particular for the particular job, for example. We've also historically processed payments via ACH in the US, electronic funds or EFT in Canada, as well as credit card processing. So in both US and Canada. And then, that kind of brings us to that payment flow that we're going to be focusing on today, and that's the CloudSuite distribution point of sale payment processing. So your user is in CSD entering a sales order transaction, either in point of sale or over the phone. The customer would like to pay with a credit card, to be able to process that credit card from within CSD order entry, get the immediate return on the authorization or sale, and the transaction detail, and process and move forward with that transaction. So eliminate the need to be working in multiple systems, duplicate entry, etc. When we look at, we do have some partners that we work with. We do work with Elevon in some instances, but primarily we're working with Priority Payments. So they're our primary partner. And when the time is right, when we continue this conversation, we can talk more about what that means, the benefit that we see in working with them, but also our customers see in working with them, whether it's minimized processing fees or whether it's security, et cetera. So, having spent the majority of my career in the ERP side of distribution, and including the last 12 years prior to joining Kodaris with Infor. I think I'm not a software engineer, but I've always said, well, payment seems like it should be easy. We've got a total amount. We tell the total amount to the payment processor. We run the card, and they return an authorization. And in theory, that is the case. It's a simple process. But what I was always told and what I've come to realize is there's a lot of regulatory and compliance that goes into this. And so not only do we need to move that data around and process that transaction, but we need to make sure we're following all the regulatory and compliance requirements. And so Infor has done a good job of that with the way they've facilitated integration to external payment processors. But as the payment provider, Kodaris, it really needs to be the one to take on that responsibility. And so when you look at regulatory and compliance, Visa, MasterCard registered merchant, PCI compliant, Tier 1, we have customers who are publicly traded companies. As such, we go through annual SOC 2, SOC 1 audits to make sure we're maintaining compliance. We have introduced, as a part of our payment processing capabilities, compliance surcharging. So for those of you who are interested in introducing surcharging when credit cards are used to recoup some of those merchant processing fees, we are helping our customers to implement compliance surcharging processes across the payment flows. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then, sending level 2 and 3 data transmissions to the merchants. And I think, for any of us who have dealt with payments historically, that becomes critical when we look at minimizing those fees. The more data you can provide, the more competitive the merchants can be in terms of processing fees. When I would talk to customers, I would always say that's why when you go to fill up your gas tank, they ask you for your zip code number. The more data they have about you, the more confident they are in the transaction, the better they can do in terms of charging those merchant processing fees. So, again, kind of the star of the show today really is talking about the embedded CloudSuite distribution payments. And so a couple of things that to talk about here. I know historically, and as the product manager, I heard this a lot of CSD. Hey, we need additional options for payment processing. So historically, there's been really a single option in terms of credit card processing embedded with CSD or SX. That there was an additional option added a couple of years ago with some limited capabilities. And so when I joined Kodaris, and I knew, Tony was in the payments, Tony and the Kodaris team, who's our CEO and founder, we're in the payment processing business already. We both knew there was a large opportunity for embedded payments. And so the engineering team went to work. And the way we've created this integration, and again, working closely with the Infor product team over time, is we took advantage of the framework as it exists. We didn't ask for Infor to build any new capabilities, to build a new integration. We said, you've got an integration to third-party payment solutions. We're going to take advantage of that. And oh, by the way, hopefully continue to build on and innovate within that framework. And so we'll walk through a couple of the setup screens when we get into the live presentation, but we're really using the existing setups and also the existing user experience or payment flow. So if you're somebody who's already using embedded payment processing within order entry, and your users are used to going in and taking a payment or running a credit card, selecting those different options, that user experience won't change, right? We haven't added anything new. We're leveraging the framework as it exists. We can provide both card present and non-present processing options. So we've got terminal options for point of sale, but we've also got card not present capabilities. And we'll talk about some of the different ways we can actually request card information from your customers and card not present. As I mentioned, we've got economical and modern terminal options. They're going to facilitate things like touchless transactions, so tap to pay, etc. We're leveraging those devices now to capture the electronic signatures. So even if your customer is not paying, but you want to capture that proof of delivery at the counter or at the shipping point, we can use those devices to capture the electronic signature and bring it back into the order in CSD. I mentioned compliant surcharging, and that's something we're helping many customers with. Some of the ways that first of all, what customers expect, but also how compliance is maintained is making sure that we're presenting the surcharge information to the customer. So we're printing surcharge detailed information on the customer's receipt. And then I will just mention this. So we talked about the Kodaris platform, everything from commerce to customer portal to the sales and operations portal, supplier integrations. You do not necessarily need to be a Kodaris platform customer in order to take advantage of Kodaris payments. So while we believe we've got a strong platform that helps people consolidate different point solutions, bring everything together, talked about all those payment flows across the platform. If you as a distributor and CloudSuite distribution or SX customer were really only interested initially in those embedded credit card transactions within CSD, that's fine. You can become a Kodaris payment only customer. And then we talk about how to leverage the minimal platform tools that are needed. So the other thing that inevitably comes up when we talk about taking payments and payment processing is settlement and reconciliation. So day end, month end, et cetera, to be able to run the necessary reports, have the necessary information easily accessible at my fingertips to reconcile to the payments that were posted in the ERP, for example. So we have strong tools built into the Kodaris operations portal. And again, as a payments only customer, you'd have access to these that allow you to see the transaction level and payment level detail. There's a lot of filter and sort capabilities. The data is easily exportable. So we've got tools in place to allow for transactional and payment reconciliation, and then that can be tied back to CSD and the payments processed through the transactional system. In addition to the Kodaris Ops portal, where we're tracking all that data, there's also a merchant portal, an MX merchant portal that has, again, a bunch of that data replicated or another version of that same data with some additional information available as well. So understanding that payment settlement reconciliation is critical. Having visibility to that transaction and payment level detail is important. We've got those tools in place to streamline and simplify that process. So at this point, what I want to do is jump in and we're going to do a live product demonstration. I guess, Brandon, I haven't been keeping an eye. I'm not sure if any questions have come in on the chat yet.
No questions yet, Mike. So
I must be doing a great job of explaining everything. Great. So we're going to jump in and we're going to come into a live product demonstration. So here I am in CloudSuite distribution. And, I mentioned that how we built this integration, we took advantage of the existing framework that CSD has to offer for credit card payment integration. So, as we look at what exactly does that mean, there are a number of setup screens. For those of you who are using a solution today embedded within CSD, you're going to be familiar with these. For those of you who aren't, they'll be new. But just understand that these are core to CSD. We didn't add any extensions to build this integration. We didn't ask Infor to build anything new or specific to Kodaris. We took advantage of the capabilities that existed. So when you look at credit card processor setup, and we've got a bunch of them out here, but you'll see Kodaris as a processor here. A couple things to point out. When you choose your processor type, you'll notice now there's a couple different types. Kodaris is listed. as one of Infor's partner for payment processing. But the rest of these fields really are the same as they've been for years in terms of how you set up these payment processors. For those of you who are a little bit more technical, and that's probably not me, we did facilitate some different communications that have driven really significant performance improvements in terms of how CSD is communicating with the processor. API keys as an example, but for those less technical, just know pretty darn fast. So again, thinking through some of these screens, when we go into the table code value or SASTT, same, when we set up payment types, same thing as you're used to, or as customers are used to. We've got a Kodaris payment type. We're going to set up that payment type, identify it as a credit card payment type, set up the GL, determine if we want to do any additional pre-auth amount to cover add-ons or shipping. How frequently do we want to use the reauthorization tool set if we are doing auths as opposed to sale? Nothing new here. Same as it's been with SX and CSD for many years. We just took advantage of the framework with the Kodaris integration. We also, when you're in SASTT, we can identify multi-MIDs or merchant IDs. So you can come in here, you can set up your multiple merchant IDs, and people do this for different reasons. Many companies want to have a merchant ID per branch location. Some have one merchant ID, but they're going to be introducing surcharging. So you would have a MID or merchant ID for non-surchargeable locations and a merchant ID for surchargeable locations. That's one of the ways we maintain compliance. Without getting into, more about this, again, just core capabilities, core setup within CloudSuite distribution. When we talk about stored credit cards, we're using that same stored credit card framework where you can come in, we can store cards at the customer level, customer ship to level. Those cards are tokenized. So, taking advantage of that, same tokenization to support secure integration and secure card transactional processing. We can look at things like editing the cards, deleting, maintaining those cards. When there are cards added either via this screen or via order entry and stored, we are syncing and replicating those tokenized cards out to the Kodaris operations portal to be used in commerce or customer portal if you are a Kodaris customer taking advantage of those tools. And then from a setup perspective, we talked about the different merchant IDs or MIDs. Talked about the ability to associate different MIDs or merchant IDs to different warehouses. So this is just, again, core capability, core functionality within CSD. For warehouse 10, I'm going to point it to a specific merchant ID. For warehouse 20, different merchant ID. And again, there's different reasons folks have for wanting to have multi-merchant IDs associated within their single company or organization. So supporting all those capabilities. So maybe at this point, the setup stuff, kind of boring, important, but boring. Wanted to emphasize that we're using the framework as it exists, right? So let's get in and process some transactions. So here I am in order entry. I'm going to go in and select my customer. This customer by default works out of warehouse 10. So we'll go ahead and we'll add a product. Put 5 of those on the order, add that to the order, and then we'll simply move over to the collect payment option. So this screen is going to look very familiar for any of those of you who are already collecting payments, either cash, check, credit card from directly within sales order entry in CSD. Same options here, the totals by ordered, shipped. Do I want to look at back ordered only? Do I want to do a deposit or percentage? More important probably is this process payment option down below. So here I can see my default payment type is Kodaris. Now, I do have the opportunity to choose one of those stored cards, and we can talk about this a little bit more, but in this case, I'm going to go out here and just run a one-time sale. So when I run that one-time sale, it's going to pop up a dialog box and ask me, am I running this a card present transaction? We're going to be running from the terminal. Or is it a card not present where we're going to be entering in the card information? So in my case, I'm just going to do a card not present. I'm going to enter in not my real credit card, the 4242 card, enter in this information. If you choose to enter in email for receipt, you can go ahead and do that. The customer will get a receipt emailed to them, and I'll go ahead and submit, and it's going to return the payment. So there's the authorization that got returned, it got approved. The amount was $71.55. Once again, if I wanted to, I could print a receipt here on the fly, or I just say finish. And now I can see it's been approved. The card's approved. I can see a previous sale of $71.55. If I navigate down and take a look at the payment history, I can see in this case, the details of that particular payment. So just taking advantage of the core capabilities of CSD in terms of what data gets returned once a card is processed, authorized, and approved. So at this point, I can finish the transaction. It says, I took a payment. Do you want to ship this? Yes or no? That's a process decision. But I can move forward. So that's just a real simple example of running a card not present. So I entered the card information on the fly. I chose to do a one-time sale. So that process, it's a sale transaction, not an auth or a pre-auth transaction. And then entered the payment, completed the order, and moved on. So maybe we'll just run another transaction here real quick. So I'll go ahead and add the item to the order, go through collect payment. As I mentioned, we can choose to use a stored card. If you choose to use a stored card, the way CSD works by default is it will always process the card as a pre-authorization, not a sale transaction. Once again, this is a process decision that distributors are making. If you wanted to run it through as a sale, you can simply click the non-refundable credit card, perhaps mislabeled, but essentially what that means is to run this transaction as a sale transaction against that stored card. So you have options if you're using stored cards as to how you want to process the transaction as a sale or a pre-authorization. In this case, I'll go ahead and I'm going to do a one-time authorization. Same thing, I'm going to go ahead and enter in the credit card detail, and I'll submit. So it'll run the card, ran it as an authorization because I chose to do a one-time auth, and I'm going to say go ahead and finish that transaction. Now, the reason that I wanted to run this as an auth, so I've got this authorization, is what we've discovered from way back in the beginning of January, where we worked with our initial customers to take them live on embedded payment processing. And we probably knew this, or I knew it to an extent. We just discovered how many different potential payment flows or scenarios are going to occur. So the customer orders a product, and then all of a sudden they call back and they say, you know what, instead of 4, give me 2. I only need 2, or I need 6. And they're changing that before the order is shipped. Well, what is that going to do to the payment? How does that impact, especially since we've used a credit card here? So, that's just one particular scenario, but, we've kind of identified and worked through all these different payment flows with our customers to make sure we're addressing those. We're understanding the flows that they that they deal with on a regular, often daily basis, and we're able to identify and address those with simple transactional processing. If I were to go in here and just say, let me finish this transaction, customer calls me up in 5 minutes and says, you know, Mike, I only needed 3, I didn't need 4. So I can come in, I can certainly pull that order back up. It's not in the picked stage yet or shipped or invoice stage. So I can come in, I can call that line item back onto the screen, change my quantity from 4 to 3. I'm going to go ahead and update that transaction. And but now I have an issue, right? I have an authorization out there for an amount that's greater than what the order amount is actually for. So notice when I come into the payment, it knows what the difference is. It also knows the previous card that I used. So even though that wasn't necessarily a stored card on this customer's account, we did a one-time authorization where they either swiped the card or I entered the card details into the transaction. We're storing and remembering that tokenized card information. So now I can select that. It'll know what the difference is. I can accept the payment. It tells me there was a difference, lets me know that the difference is being applied. If I were to now go down and look at payment history, I'm going to see 2 transactions, right? I'm going to see an initial authorization amount, and I'm going to see a change in that auth amount. So, again, core, making sure we make this simple for the user. Understanding how those transactions are being processed, making sure we're meeting all the different workflows for payment processing, capturing the information as necessary to simplify, the end user experience and transactional processing.
All right, Mike, we do have a couple of questions. You want to
let's jump in. Go ahead if you want to. And by the way, Brandon is probably equally qualified or more qualified than me to answer some of these questions. So I think we'll tag team it here.
All right. So first question for card present transactions, does each workstation need their own swiper box, or is there a centralized location similar to centralized bridge and SendPOS? So you want to take that?
Go for it, Brandon.
All right. So yeah, our terminals are not required to be plugged into a single terminal or computer. You choose a terminal. So when you use the box or did the demo and it popped up terminal, it'll bring up the last terminal used or a list of terminals. So for example, our test terminals in Atlanta, and I can activate that from my screen here in Kansas City. So it does not require one per station. So oftentimes, like in a will call area, you may only need, if you have 4 will call stations, maybe you only need 2 terminals or something like that. The other piece of that is ours are PCI compliant out of the box. So in essence, when they arrive, they're certified to us, to our system. And so you connect them via Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and they're ready to go. So you do not have to have a centralized bridge. Question 2 was, the card is not present. Is there a way to maintain a card on file and just select the card to be run instead of entering the card info? Card is not present. So that's just save cards, I believe. You can add either an ARSOC, a saved card, or within the collect payment checkout, or if you want to go to that screen, Mike, you can add a payment and save it there as well.
So we're talking about the ability to store a new card for a customer, right? That's what we're referencing. That card can be added here, or it can be added through order entry. And you noticed in order entry, I did a one-time that didn't store the card, but if you had chosen to, there was an option that says add card. That would add the card and be to make it a stored card for that particular customer or customer shipped to. So I'll just show that button real quick. So you've got an add new card button here. So there's a number of different ways to accomplish that, if we're reading the question correctly.
Exactly. Next question is, when it comes to different warehouses using different MIDs, can cards be saved on file in one location but used at all locations? So yeah, we through priority, what we do is we use a common token database across all your MIDs. That's an option. You don't have to do that, but that is what most customers choose. So then you can use those saved cards across any MID that's in the system. So that's a pretty simple one. If a customer pays an invoice on the Kodaris platform, how's it displayed in CSD accounts receivable? You want to take that one, Mike?
Yeah, I think how is it displayed in CSD accounts receivable? So the way, if a customer is paying an invoice through the Kodaris customer portal or through the Kodaris platform, the operations portal, for the vast majority of our customers, there's a couple ways to do this. There are APIs, but the vast majority of our customers, we generate the lockbox file. We act as the bank, generate the lockbox file with the payment and remittance advice. And we're posting via lockbox functionality to that customer's AR. So you're going to see the payment, the original payment in AR. If you're looking at the paid invoice, you're going to see the journal, all that fun stuff that you're used to today if you're manually posting cash through AREC or cash receipts entry. So we're just leveraging core capabilities, core functionality, tying it all the way back to, we showed the payment. If you wanted to see, and you'll see in the AR inquiry, customer inquiry, the ability to, just like you can in the transaction detail today, filter on payment. We also have that payment detail in the Kodaris operations portal.
All right, I got a couple of questions on surcharging. So do we want to show the surcharge flow, and then maybe we'll come back to this?
Yeah. I saw the one, when is N4 going to be ready? So I just want to be clear, I'm not the N4 product manager anymore. So just kidding. Yeah, so surcharging. So I mentioned that for us, warehouse 10 is set as non-surchargeable, warehouse 20 is surchargeable. That's the simplest way to think about it, as Brandon and our payments team have quickly realized. Maintaining compliance can be more than just which warehouse am I working out of. But we continue to look at all those scenarios and ensure that we're maintaining compliance, working with our partners. But here I'm going to choose to place this order out of warehouse 20, selling a lot of the whatever this is. And we'll add that to the order. And we're going to go in and collect a payment. Now, in this case, once again, I'm going to do, instead of a stored card, a one-time sale. We're going to run I'll submit that. Now, because we're in a surchargeable location that's tied to a surchargeable MID, what you're going to see here that looks a little bit different. It's still approved, still a sale. It was a Visa. You're going to see the amount was $29.48. So that's actually including a surcharge of 86 cents. So that was more than the total amount of the invoice. So when we go back, you're going to see something that looks a little bit different. So that charge was the invoice or order amount plus the calculated surcharge based on the surcharge amount that you've defined as an organization that you want to charge. Once again, we can print the receipt. It's going to show the surcharge amount. If I click finish, remember that total was for 29 something, but here the transaction's only posted for 28.62. So currently, CSD doesn't, recognize or understand how to bring those surcharge dollars back and store them. I can tell you that there is, to the question that was asked, well, first of all, we have some different options or opportunities that we've talked to customers about. Can we bring that surcharge back in and include it as an add-on on the order dynamically? Could we put it into a user field so it's visible to folks when they go in and the customer wants to understand the total amount of the charge to their card through an inquiry screen, for example? And so we've explored all those, but really where we are, Infor has a development project going on that should be available in the October release. And I believe that it will be, because in the conversations we've had, they're actively in development, where they're going to include, and I don't want to spell out all the feature set. I think Brandy, who is the current product manager for CSD, will be doing a release preview presentation coming up. But they're going to be including a new field or a new bucket to add the surcharge amount at the payment level. It'll also include some some additions to the integration to validate the surcharge at different stages in the transaction. And then it'll be included as part of reconciliation, pointed to a specific GL account. So Infor has targeted, and I believe we'll be delivering on the October release, for some new capabilities to incorporate capturing those surcharges and returning them back to CSD at the transaction level. And that's actually per transaction, per payment, is my understanding. So if there were multiple payments against a single transaction, we'd have that visibility. In addition, or I should say, at this point, and we've been working with customers who've been surcharging through our customer portal for years now. What our customers do, all of that surcharge data, the detailed data is in the Kodaris operations portal. So you're going to see at the transaction and payment level surcharges that were calculated against the specific payment type. So our customers will use the reconciliation tools to narrow down or filter down to surcharges calculated within a period of time, whether that be a day, a week, a month. And they'll do manual journal entries back to CSD to make sure they're reconciling their financials for the surcharge incurred. So that is the current compliant capability that CloudSuite distribution customers using Kodaris and surcharging are doing. We're looking forward to that October release. And in fact, I reached out to the development team earlier this week to get an update to see if we could start doing testing sooner, to make sure that we understand the new capabilities and are bringing those surcharge amounts back into the screen, into the appropriate fields. So that's surcharging in a nutshell. In terms of the workflow, really, from a user perspective, I didn't do anything different. It knew the payment method that was being used was surchargeable. It knew the location or the MID that we were processing through was surchargeable, and therefore calculated the surcharge amount. Brendan, before I got a few more things I think we wanted to touch on, but before I keep talking, are there some other questions we want to run through real quick?
I think that covers the surcharge question at the top. There are some questions about the terminals themselves and whether you have to have a separate on-prem enterprise connector. So you do not. Again, from a terminal standpoint, they are ready to use out of the box. Those of you who might have seen us at Tug, we were running live transactions, from my laptop on a live terminal through CSD. So, does not require on-prem connector of any kind. The terminals themselves do support tap to pay. They do support debit, PIN entry. So all those things. I think that covers most of the questions at this point. You want to cover a couple, Mike, and then I'll scan through and see if I missed any.
Yeah. So there were a couple of other features. I think one of the things that's important to us is, we want to, first of all, not only make sure we understand all of the payment flows. And when I say payment flows, really what I mean is understand every way that your customer wants to do business with you, wants to make payments, right? And then every way that you guys are processing those payments. So it becomes important for us to understand that. And that's what's going to give us that end-to-end processing capability. But we also want to look at continued innovation. So what are those, what's the continued innovation, the continued enhancements that we want to deliver to payment processing? One of the big ones I know is for those companies that are Canadian. There have been some challenges historically with processing card present transactions. We've been working diligently on that with our partner. I think, Brandon, we have a solution, and we're starting testing with we're getting ready to start testing with our initial beta customer to do card present transactions in Canada through the terminals. And obviously the benefit there is card present, more data, more security, better rates. And so that's been one of the gaps that has been out there for CSD customers in particular with regard to payment processing in Canada. One of the other capabilities, and there's some neat tools here. So I'm going to go ahead and just enter another order here real quick. And go over here and collect a payment. And some of you may have noticed there's a button here that isn't necessarily part of the normal payment checkout. So I said we didn't use any extensions to facilitate the integration, but we have built a couple of extensions to enhance or add on to the capabilities. So one of them is this option to request a payment. So what this does is actually when I click that button, it's going to pop up and allow me to email a copy of the order with a payment link to the customer. So instead of me saying to the customer, hey, can you read your credit card number to me over the phone? We can actually send this payment link to their email address. When they get it, they simply click on the link. It'll take them to a secure interface where they can enter in their payment detail information. Once they do that, the payment is run, approved, authorized. That's going to come back and return right back into this particular order with the authorization. So what are those different ways you want to do business? What are the different ways you want to enable your customers to make payments? Here's just another example of how we can use a payment request link sent via email and have your customers enter that on their mobile device, on their laptop, to enter in their payment detail, which would then immediately be returned to CSD and update the order to continue processing. The other thing you may have noticed, and I'll go ahead this time and just run a stored card here. So I'm just going to select one of my stored cards. I'm going to say accept payment. Card was approved. Like I said, by default, CSD runs cards as a pre-auth or an authorization. So that's what it did. But one of the things you may have noticed was when I looked at payment history, there was a fraud score down below. So here's another extension that we have included. So we've added some additional data. When we make that payment, we're actually reaching out and we have worked with another company called MaxMind, who's dedicated to basically fraud detection. So we built a robust integration with MaxMind to go out during these payments and look at fraud risk and return fraud risk data. This is one of those tool sets that are constantly learning, driven by AI, driven by billions of transactions globally. So it's not just your transactions or CSD or Kodaris only transactions. It gets better as it goes. But ultimately what it's doing is it's looking at a whole bunch of different pieces of information and then returning a fraud score essentially in near real time or real time with regards to, do we detect a high level of potential fraud or not, medium, small, etc. When you're processing these through the Kodaris portal or through our commerce portal, we can put orders on hold based on fraud scoring. We can give red, yellow, green indicators based on fraud scoring. Currently, we're not necessarily preventing the transaction, but certainly a workflow could be put in place. An extension could be built that is based on that fraud score and triggers different activities with regards to how this transaction should be processed. I think in talking to the CSD and really distribution community at large, one of the challenges with fraud is, yeah, we catch it, but the stuff's gone and I'm out. So this obviously is looking for and scoring the potential fraud up front so we can do that investigation before moving forward and shipping the product and completing this transaction. Couple of other things since we talked about the Kodaris operations portal. This is the Kodaris operations portal. So, here we're going to see the orders replicated from CSD. You'll notice if I click and drill into one of these orders, and I've just filtered down to a couple of orders, same request payment link that we saw directly out of CloudSuite distribution is available from the Kodaris operations portal. So we've had customers using and doing this for years. So I can send that. We store and capture all of these emails or these payment requests as they're sent. So that capability is there. One other thing, if we look at the Kodaris operations portal, for those of you who have customers call in and say, hey, I'd love to pay my invoices down with a credit card. Can you take my card? I'll tell you what invoices I want to pay. Through our operations portal, we can come in, I can pull up the customer. I can go to their open invoices. I can, from here, choose which invoices I want to pay. I can choose to make the payment, again, use a stored card or transaction type payment method, or I can add a new payment method. When I do this, not only am I taking the payment, but I'm creating that remittance advice file, that lockbox file behind the scenes. It's going to go push to CSD and do the auto reconciliation on the invoices, partial or fully paid through this, through the operations portal. So for those of you who are processing that card, pushing it in as an unapplied payment, and then have to do a second step to reconcile the unapplied cash to the specific invoices, this obviously streamlines that process. I think that was really everything that I wanted to touch on. I don't know, Brandon, if any other questions came up that we need to address. We've got a few minutes left here.
Yeah, I think most of the we did have a question about using EFT or ACH from within CSV, like a credit card. That is something that I know we've had on our roadmap that we're looking at, but today we're solving that through the accept payment link, which you demoed. So whether in CSD or out of the customer portal. So
when you send that accept payment link and the customer clicks to pay, they have the option to use a credit card or indicate their ACH or EFT information to make the payment that way. So that does support ACH for specific transaction payments. As you mentioned, we're working on or looking to enhance the within order entry to deliver that EFT or ACH on the line level or the payment level. Okay.
And we did just have a question come through about authorizing cards. When do those fund, or how do they finalize a payment? So, so there's two options in CSD: one sale, one auth. So sale is going to process that same day and batch out that night. Authorizations will batch out when you invoice the order. So that's the process. So it doesn't do final payment until the order gets invoiced.
And for those of you who have been around, we take advantage of the AR credit card manager report. Typically, people run that as a stored report. That's what goes out and potentially looks at any authorizations that are aging and need to be reauthed, so that those authorizations don't expire when the order is open for an extended period of time. Anything else, Brandon? I think we covered them all, right?
I think we did too.
Well, I want to thank everybody. We use basically the full hour here. We would love to continue the conversation for those of you who have additional questions, who are interested in learning more about Kodaris as an either a payment option or in the Kodaris platform as a whole. Um, so Brian, I'll pass it back to you. I don't know if you had any closing remarks or follow-up steps for the group, but we appreciate everybody's time.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Thank you. And thank you, Brandon, as well. First of all, I'd like to thank the attendees for some amazing questions. There was a lot of good questions from the folks on the line. So there's certainly very high interest here, which we expected. I just got a couple of, I guess, comments along the way. I mean, the embedding in CSD payments, I think, is a huge value. So that makes this whole setup a whole lot easier. The fraud detection, which is AI driven, I think is a phenomenal capability. And keep in mind that, although the payment processing is incredibly strong here with Kodaris, it's part of a larger platform, right? So whether that's e-commerce or payables and receivables processes or what have you, it's a whole big platform that Kodaris provides, and this is one element of it. So please keep that in mind. You have the information here for both Mike and Brandon up on the screen. So certainly you can forward any further questions to them or contact your NSA consultant or sales rep. We'd be happy to go ahead and make a one-on-one arrangement to discuss your needs specifically. But with that, yeah, we've just about taken the full hour, and appreciate again everyone's attendance today as well as our presenters. So thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Have a good one.